Okay, here we are for take 2. Sorry about that. Those of you that were already on, starting to watch us, we apologize for those mechanical issues that we were having. So we'll try to start this over again. So Josh, go ahead.
All right, we're here for, I feel weird because we already did this, but another edition of Brad and Josh on Wednesday. Brad wanted to kind of do a sit-in and kind of just like a discussion type of a deal here in the shop. So that's what we're doing. So go ahead, Brad, discuss what you want to discuss.
Okay, so as I was thinking about the last few weeks of our Wednesday sessions, I really liked last week and showing the effects that oil has as it gets into a ball. And you know, you can go and you can watch that video. I think that was a pretty good informational-wise video. Just because a ball has more oil in it doesn't mean you need to throw it away. It just changes the usability of the ball. And I had told Josh that, you know, I don't want these videos to be about featuring a particular ball, although we can do that from time to time. I would like these to be more educational in nature, and I thought it would be a good thing this week if Josh and I talked about some of the things that we're seeing in the shop from some of the customers that are coming in. And one thing in particular, I want to talk about fit. How should a ball fit?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, depending on where you go, that can be answered in a number of different ways. If you were to come in here when I was here, I may measure your hand one way. Come in when Josh is here, he may measure it subtly different. If you go to one of the other area pro shops, they may measure it subtly different. But what I want to make clear is your hand should fit in such a way that, first of all, it doesn't give you any pain. But even more importantly, you know, I mean, we're seeing balls come in to where the back wall of the grip is completely destroyed. In other words, the grips are in the bowling ball, whatever way they're in the ball, and this is the thumb hole over here. Okay, so you got the grips in the ball, your hands in the ball, and your fingers are going in at such this angle, and you're smashing the whole back wall of the grip out of the ball. Rather, how many times, Josh, have we suggested, well, you don't have the flexibility in your hand to be going with a lot of pitch this way.
A lot of people that don't have flexibility, I've been seeing forward pitches and zero pitches, and you know, I wonder why your hand hurts or why you're having issues coming out of the ball.
People are having trouble hearing us. There's nothing else going on here. I don't know why.
Yeah, we don't have anything going on. Maybe if you want, you can get a little closer. I can talk a little louder. Does that help if I talk a little louder? Yay or nay? Blue thumbs ups?
Justin, does that help when you talk a little bit louder? There's nothing going on here. There's no machine or anything in the background.
The point is what I'm trying to get at is, that was broken. What I'm trying to get at is that let's drill a pitch in your fingers, the finger holes that match the flexibility of your finger. Let's drill a pitch in your thumb that matches the flexibility of your thumb. Let's drill a span, the distance. Let's drill a span that matches the length of your span. Now, which one's right and what's wrong? Certainly, what is wrong, if you're having any pain whatsoever, if there's any blisters. I mean, look at my hand. I bowl for a living.
I bowl 6 nights a week. I don't got nothing like that.
So calluses are one thing, but having a big red smudge here, or or I see some people, they get done bowling, and on their fingernails, they have black marks on their fingernails like that, because their ball it fits in such a way that they're crushing the back wall of that grip. Well, my suggestion is bring your stuff in and let's just see if your fit is good for you. Now, ultimately, the determining factor as to whether or not your ball fits properly is how the ball comes off your hand at your release. You must be able to clear the thumb hole, not throw the ball off of your thumb. Okay? For those of you that are aware of Bowl U, Rick Benoit did a great video. I even thought about pulling up the video and letting you watch the video. In fact, let's do that. I'm going to do that. So, Rick, I love you. At the risk of sounding like this is plagiarizing, it is not. So we're going to have Tim zoom in on this video because this ultimately will be the proper release. This is 3.5 minutes long. If you want to learn more about Bowl U, well, this is just like a little tidbit of something. But I want you to watch this, okay? So 3.5 minutes long, and this is worthwhile.
In talking about the release, I'd like to show it to you in a couple different ways. I want to try to show it to you in relation with a drawing at this point in time. It might help you understand it a little differently. Now, the circle you see here is the actual size of a bowling ball. I want you to see the hand motion and how it works as the ball is coming off of the hand. There's many people motion. All of those are different motions, but the most important of all is this. And so what we're going to do at this level is give you drills to help you improve the relationship between the thumb exit and the fingers working the circumference of the ball.
I've watched that video myself probably close to 100 times. Many of those times are when I'm working with somebody and I'm showing and sharing that video. But I find myself thinking about what Rick's talking about there in that video. You have to get out of that thumb. There are many schools of thought that talk about the edge of the ball, the edge of the thumb hole. Okay, do you want a lot of bevel? Do you want a little bevel? Which one's right? Which one's wrong? Whichever one allows you to get out of the thumb, clear that thumb, and let the ball roll down your hand. I notice many times, let's walk over here to the fitting ball. Many times, okay, so we have an oval fitting ball, not a big deal, but many times people come in here and they're trying to determine which one fits the best. Oh, I like this one. But that is not at all the way a thumb exits the thumb hole. The thumb exits the thumb hole by coming out. The ball rolls down. Oh, I can't get out of it now all of a sudden. I can if I go this way. So I need it slightly bigger so that I can exit the thumb and the ball rolls down the hand. Very important, working the circumference of that ball like you saw in that video. Another thing that we see here in the shop, depending on the pitch that you have, I'll use this bigger hole here, Tim, so you can see. Let's say that this is your grip. The pitch that we're seeing is it's going back this way, but my finger can only go this way. All of a sudden, I get my hand in there, but my fingernail is crushing the back wall of that grip. As a suggestion to you, go look at your bowling ball. Go look at your favorite bowling ball and look at that back wall of that grip. Is it all worn to the point that you can't even tell what size the grip is? We see some in here where the size of the grip is actually worn off. And then I look at people's fingernails, and their fingernails are kind of black and blue because they're getting crushed by the back wall. Well, what happens if my finger can only bend that much? Then wouldn't it make sense to drill the hole relative to what the flexibility of my finger is? Here's another suggestion. As we age, when I hurt my wrist a few years ago, many of you know that I was out for a whole year. When I came back, I went to a slightly shorter span. Shorter span puts a little less tension on all of the tendons in your wrist. Many of you, if you looked at my span, which I guess I could probably show you, Josh, do you want to run in the other room and grab one of my bowling balls? I have one right here. I have a hot cell right here. It's down underneath there because I was throwing this the other day, but let me grab a thumb out of here. This is one of my thumbs. Just happen to have it in here. Look at how much tape is inside of that thumb hole. So in no way am I saying you must use tape. Tape is a tool to allow you to exit the thumb properly. I like this much tape in my ball. And then that way, if my thumb swells up, I can take a piece of tape out and still get out of the thumb. So let's screw this in. Okay, that's in. That's how my thumb comes out of the ball. But look, my thumb's all the way in. Look at how my span is in my ball. Many of you may have heard, well, then that's too short. And that's okay. But what we must allow ourselves to do, no matter what span you have, no matter what pitches you have, no matter how much bevel you have in your thumb, I like a lot of bevel. That doesn't mean that I'm suggesting a lot of bevel for you. But you must be able to have your hand in the ball and exit the thumb like that, which is exactly what you just saw in the video. You see that? Watch the work. The thumb comes out and this rotates. Can you see that? Is that coming through good?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to have the thumb come out and the ball roll down our hand. There's no lifting up through the ball. That actually lowers your rev rate. Wow, look at all the lift that guy has on that ball. Look at his rev rate. If you watch that in slow motion, there's no lift at all. The ball is unraveling. There's no grabbing this way of the guys with the high rev rate. If anything, they're going this way, unraveling. Many people talk about throwing a yo-yo. I like to say, you know, think of Spider-Man when he's shooting his web, shooting it like this. That's kind of the direction that we're wanting to take with the release. But as it relates to the fit, there's many different ways that a ball could fit you that would allow you to release the ball properly. There's no right fit, but there are certainly wrong fits. What are the wrong fits? If you're having finger pain, we have a couple of retirees that bowl here. I've looked at their span and the way their ball's drilled, and they haven't changed anything for the last 15 or 20 years. And you look at their hand, it's lost flexibility over the course of that time, and nobody has been in to be able to reevaluate how their hand fits. Some people have carpal tunnel issues, and yet I see them. Well, do you have any hand issues? Yeah, I do. And then we see them to where their hand is way out over here when their thumb's in the ball. That's how far that we got them. Not we, but that's what we see here in the shop. And so what we need to do is shorten that span so that they can fit their hand in, and they're not so stretched.
I see overstretched spans everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And it kind of bugs me because I thought that was such a thing in the past that people may have caught up to the present, but unfortunately they haven't. And just like Brad said, this isn't like a profession you go to school for. There isn't a degree involved in it. You learn by experience and by trial and error almost. And, there's just a lot of, how do I say this? There is no nice way to say it. There's a lot of freaking bad work out there. Simple as that.
Well, I don't want this to become bashing of the shop.
I'm not bashing
any means.
I'm not bashing any shop. I'm just saying from what we have seen, just in the few weeks I've been here, there's just some, backdoor driller, bad work going on.
If you're watching this and you're loyal to another shop, okay, that's fine. Please make sure that you go in and make sure that you have things reevaluated. Make sure that you can get out of the thumb hole properly so that you can achieve a proper release. And the reason that BowlU is teaching that release, clean exit, rotating the circumference of the ball, is so that that type of ball roll matches up to the transitions that we know are going to occur. Rick mentioned that in that video, so please go back and watch that video repeatedly, and I think you'll try to grasp what we're talking about. Some of the drills would be, you can be like at your couch, down on the floor at your couch, and learning to work the circumference of the ball, getting that to rotate, versus lifting up through the ball goes flying away. Learning to rotate that ball, getting your thumb out and working the circumference of the ball. Okay? I hope that helps.
Some people want to talk about layouts.
We can talk about layouts. That's something great. We can talk about layouts. So,
Short pin, the long pin. A couple people asked, what's,
well, I'll tell you this. Let's come over here on the workbench.
don't mind the mess.
Yeah, don't mind the mess. This is what we do. This is where we work. I need one of our chalk pencils. Okay, this will do. I want you to know that my ball rolls right here. If you look closely, you can even see some of the lines, the flare lines on this particular ball. But the first rotation, that is my track relative to where my hand is. So what we do is we take this tool called an armadillo and we come over here and line this up. Your pro shop should know how to do this, and most do. Come over here and we mark this over here. That's your axis point. And then what we do is we take, here it is. We take the center of your grip and we measure over. How far over that is. So I am 5 inches over by we'll call it 7/8 inches up. So 5, we'll call it by 1 inch up. Now, that's my PAP, positive axis point. I want you to know that from that point, a pin that's drilled 3 3/8 inches, that's called your leverage point, 3 3/8 inches. So a pin that's drilled anywhere on this arc will be the most amount of flare that you can have for this ball. If you go an inch farther or an inch sooner, or earlier, rather, inch closer, I should say, inch farther, an inch closer, you'll decrease the flare the same amount. What do I mean by decreasing the flare? Well, let's say the most amount of flare for this ball is really, really wide. An inch farther or an inch closer will decrease these lines and shrink these lines the same amount. Is this 100% foolproof? No, it's not, because we got weight blocks, and now you don't have the luxury of drilling weight holes starting in this August coming. The way I like to explain it is very, very basic. Is there more to it? Of course there's more to it. You got asymmetry, you've You've got depths of holes that can
Cover stock
reshape
material.
the core. As Josh just said, you've got cover stock material. There's all kinds of components that go into this. So I don't want this to be bowling ball technology. This is bowling ball technology 101. Very basic. So the farther that you drill a pin, the more it shrinks these lines and moves the weight block. So let's say that this was the weight block. The weight block is in here. If we drilled that weight block right on our axis, put that pin right over here on our axis, it would be like this. And when we rolled that ball, this is going to be spinning very fast. Pin way over here in our track, put the holes in, pin over here on our track, we throw that ball, it's going to be taking a long time to make one revolution. So the difference between the track and your axis, for the most part, is 3 3/8 inches. So therefore that's the most unstable you can make this shape. I like to use the analogy of a quarterback throwing a pass, a spiral football. That's the fastest that football can spin. A field goal kicker, that's the slowest that a football can spin. Where you position that weight block has a lot to do with where that ball reads on the lane. Now, what's more important, the layout or the surface prep, or the response time of the ball, the cover stock? Well, it all goes hand in hand. So, layout-wise, higher rev rate people, typically, I mean, I would suggest you have a pin or two that's 5 inches, a pin or two that's 4.5, and maybe a pin or two that's 5.5. Right here, for me, this is 5 inches from my axis. Can't get it quite on here, and I did this fast, so it's not quite exact, but you see 5 inches. So my bridge is about 5 inches from my axis. What's the determining factor in whether I like this layout? Me and my ability to change rotation and change speeds and change rev rates. And that's a lot of stuff that we talk about in the Bowl U class. But all in all, layout wise, yeah, you know, there's the dual angle. I'm not really that well schooled in dual angle layouts. Josh is a lot more knowledgeable in dual angle layouts than I am. And I'm not afraid to say that stuff to people. I only like to talk about what I know that I'm talking about. And it would be unfair for me to try to share with you something that I don't really know a whole lot about. But that's more a Josh area of expertise. Many people come in and then we've asked you, so we've had many of you take advantage of our offer. Bring your stuff in, we'll throw on a lane. Today I had somebody in here before the video and we still had the sweepers, the pattern that we used for the Sunday sweeper, we still had that out. And we looked at some of his equipment and he bowled, and then we're going to be able to make suggestions based on a way that he can increase his arsenal relative to each other. There's going to be a couple holes I can already see in his arsenal.
Now, I kind of want to jump in.
So go ahead. So flop over to Josh. He's got something to add.
Brad is talking about all this layout stuff, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're not magic workers. You buy a urethane ball, it's going to act like a urethane ball no matter what we put on it. Okay, we can change it slightly with layout, yes. We can close the gap a little bit. But that ball that he's showing you there was designed to roll and have a certain type of ball motion. Now, can you make it a little bit quicker, a little bit slower? Yes, you can. But we're not magic workers. You buy astrophysics. We can't make that into a Sherlock. You know what I mean? It's just impossible. You can change it slightly, yes, but when we're talking about layouts, just know that you're buying a ball for a reason. So we should probably want to match that reason with the ball and the layout so that they can both work together and not kind of, contradict each other. For whatever reason you bought that bowling ball for. That's all I wanted to add.
A couple weeks ago, we talked about this little chart, and it's just a makeshift chart, friction versus response time. And you might have ball A, ball B, ball C, ball D, and those are the 4 balls you have. And maybe you have a plastic ball, it's ball E. Well, as you can see, you've got 4 bowling balls that are right around the same area of the graph, and that's fine. Ball A, maybe you put a little bit more surface on it, and it slides it up over here. Maybe you have, when you started out with ball C, it was fresh out of the box, and now here you are 2 months into your league season, and you've used this ball, every night of league, plus you bowled a couple other nights. You got 30 or 40 games on this ball. Maybe this ball is starting to smoothen out a little bit, so it moves in this area of the chart. And then you come in and you say, hey Josh, I really want to drill that high road pearl. Well, high road pearl maybe would be way over here. Lower friction, quicker response time. What Josh just said is, obviously, I hope you can see it, there is no way that we're ever going to be able to put a layout in ball A that's designed to fit over in this part of the graph, and then put a layout in the high road pearl to be able to say, well, I want to be able to use it just like this. I love this ball. I love this layout. I want the same layout in this ball. Okay, but it's not going to read or roll the same because it's a completely different ball. You may like that layout for you, but its usability would be in a whole different area of the graph. Okay, is that answering your question?
Yeah.
Where would a hot cell fit on this graph? Well, hot cell is pretty high friction, but it's very smooth response time. So maybe a hot cell would be over here. What about a pitch black? Pitch black would be over here. It's a little lower friction, relative to the hot cell. Back a few years ago, there was the natural. That would be down here. Well, I mean, they don't even make it anymore. But the point is that it's all urethane. Urethane balls typically are slower response. Moving up the scale, you have regular reactive balls. They start getting into a little quicker. But a Sherlock, or let's use the Gravity Evolve, the latest ball. People are coming in the shop. I want to drill this Gravity Evolve. That's a higher friction, smoother ball. So Gravity Evolve. I hope you can read that. Well, what about that All-Road, Brad? I really like that All-Road. It came out at the same time. The All-Road, related to the Gravity Evolve, is certainly less friction and certainly a little quicker. Well, how does this All-Road relate to an idle pearl? Well, an idle pearl would certainly be a little less friction and a little quicker response time. Okay, so there's 3 balls that if you don't have in your arsenal that you may want to consider. Or better yet, not necessarily that specific ball, but you definitely want that specific ball motion in your arsenal. You want to have one ball that's higher friction relative to what you do. Well, we have a senior league that comes in here and bowls. And a couple of the women that bowl in the senior league, they throw the ball really, really slow and don't have much rev rate. Should we get them a Gravity Evolve? Would that be a good matchup for them? Well, geez, Brad, I've heard that's a really great ball. Yeah, but not for them. Because what we want is we want good ball motion. Not just, well, does that mean that's a bad ball? This ball doesn't do what I paid for it to do. I told you I wanted this ball to go long and hook hard. Oh, come on. That's not that easy to accomplish. We need to get you matched up relative to what you do physically and get the ball to fit properly. Does that mean that we're going to try to change everybody to get their thumb out of the ball, exiting properly? No, not if that's what you want to do, and if that's your strengths. But if you're going to want to start getting better at bowling tournaments, yeah, we might need some work on cleaning up some of the physical limitations that you might have. Josh, anything you want to add to that? A lot.
I'm experiencing it personally. I'm out there on one knee yesterday, doing what he wants me to do for like all day long. It's like 6 hours now. This isn't like 20 minutes. Me and Angela Glazer were both out there all day yesterday because we're dead here. Then I go in I put 4 steps in front of it, and it's different. And it's very frustrating when he's talking about exiting the thumb and getting to a certain place on the ball where you actually want to release it. It's not easy. We're not saying it's easy. But if you do, like you said, want to go more tournaments like I do, and not be so much a donator, that's the type of stuff you gotta work on. And change is never easy. And if you want to get better, change is necessary. That's how I see it. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so where are we at on time? I kind of thought this would be a little quicker one. I'm not throwing shots today. I expected there to be more questions. I hope this was worthwhile.
Give people, go ahead, put it out there. Give people more time to think, because they were just listening to you. That's what they do.
Well, it's up to you guys.
If you guys want to answer some questions, answer your questions, I mean, go ahead and start asking them. I'll start reading them off to Brad.
I'm going to say one of the biggest pet peeves that I have that I see working in here in the shop is people bring their bowling ball in and their fit doesn't allow them to roll the ball properly. And what's even worse, when I look at all of their bowling balls, the fit from one ball to the next is different. Here's something, now that I'm thinking of it. You have your hand in the ball. And I'll show you on that hot cell that I had. My thumb lays in the ball a certain way. The sides of my thumb lay in the ball a certain way. That's just the angle that your thumb lays in the ball. My fingers, as I lay my fingers across the ball, they lay in the ball a certain way. But yet I see people all the time, they come in and the grip that they have is set in their ball and glued in their ball perpendicular to this thumb line and not perpendicular to the way that their hand lays in the ball. So let's go back over to that hot cell and let me show you. This is what I'm talking about. We put your thumb in the ball. Take your thumb halfway out. That's where the sides of my thumb are. And if you look down in there, I don't have any tape on the sides of the thumb because I don't want to be flawed with my thumb exit. I don't like the feel of that. The pad of my thumb, I like right on the tape. So I put the tape over here. Now, I don't care where you put the tape, as long as once you get it to fit properly, that every ball looks and feels the same. So now I put my thumb in the ball, I lay my hand across the ball. Notice how short my grip is. I'm not stretched here when I do this. And I just trace the direction that my fingers are laying in the ball. So if you can look down in, if you can see the very, very bottom of the grip, I don't know if you can on this or not. Is that better? Yeah, you can see it a little bit. You'll notice that the bottom of the grip is tilted so that the pads of my finger have the most amount of the grip on it. So I just grabbed a grip. This isn't even necessarily my side. But if I glued this grip in like this, I see people come in all the time. This whole corner is all worn, and this over here is virtually untouched. Well, what if we glued this grip in just a little bit like that? Now the pad of your finger is right on the grip. Keeping in mind, you can do whatever you like. I do know some people, they like their grips glued in like this. They like the feel of that. That's okay with me. But then when I look at every one of their balls should be the same. That's what we're looking for. I like my grip to be this way.
I got a great question, because I kind of agree with it. Justin says, do your finger pitches follow the same principle? And I happen to agree with it. If you're going to go that far with it, your finger pitches should also flow that way. It's called CLT drilling.
Of course you can. Of course you can. Should it? I'm not going to say it should.
Okay, so this has been asked a couple of times too. The plugging and re-drilling the ball affect its reaction.
Okay,
Yes.
oh, hold on, we'll get to that. But I want to address this good question from Justin. Should the grips also angle that way? I'm of the school of, I don't care what your fit is. As long as when you get down to the bottom of your swing, that you can exit the thumb properly and let the ball roll down your hand. That's all I'm really concerned about. If you can't, then maybe we have a fit issue. If you can't get out of the thumb, then maybe we have a fit issue. If you're experiencing pain, then maybe we have a fit issue. So that's as simple as I like to make it. Because I guarantee you, if we had Rick Benoit measure my hand, and then Josh measure my hand, and then I measure my hand, all three of those might be subtly different. But all three of those fits, hopefully, will still allow me to get down to the release point to where I can exit the thumb and rotate the ball properly. So which one's right? They're all right. Which one do I like the best? That's for me to decide. I like the feel of this one the best. So you can use, Justin, you can use whatever pitches that you want. Here in the shop, there are times that we use the CLT pitches. Other times, we don't. Other times, I see a flexibility issue on a person. So I've had people that their middle finger has very little flexibility, and their ring finger has a lot of flexibility. So, as long as they have pitches that fit their hand accordingly, and they're not experiencing pain, and they can exit the thumb properly, then I'm fine with that. And that's just my take on it. Are there people out there floating around in the industry that would debate that? Of course. And I'm not interested in debate. I just wanted you to know that I'm coming from the standpoint of, I don't want your hand to hurt tomorrow morning after you bowled tonight and then you had a bowl of makeup because you had Halloween last week. I don't want you to have to bowl 6 games and then have pain the next day. That's what we're talking about here relative to the people of Bowl League. Pain-free so you can exit the thumb properly. I'm beating it to death, but that's the extent that I want to keep it. Specifically, Justin, if you want to come in and have us watch you throw the ball, and you're doing something that's subtly flawed throughout your release, and then that ends up being a change in pitch that we decide on, then that would be specifically a direction we would take on a case-by-case basis. Josh, anything you want to add to that? Okay, now let's talk about the other question.
So this has been asked a few times in a few different ways. Does plugging and re-drilling a ball affect its reaction? I think if it's been drilled like 3 times, then it majorly affects it. It's not even the same ball. But if you're dealing with single drilled stuff, I mean,
Well,
it's pretty similar.
I'm going to tell you what. Does drilling a ball the first time, does that reshape the core? Yes. Okay. Does that make it right or wrong? No, it's nothing. It's just, it's not as much of a science as a lot of people want to make it out to be. It's kind of like what Josh was talking about a little while ago. Great bowlers, I've learned this from Rick, that great bowlers are artists. They're not scientists. They're artists. They have the ability to create things instinctively. They just do it. The person I was working with earlier today, he does things physically that are fantastic, but he doesn't even know that he's doing it or why he's doing it. So sometimes you can improve just by becoming more aware of what it is that you do, and then doing and changing things on purpose based on what you normally already do. In answering that, does drilling a ball 2 times change it? Of course it does. Does that mean it's bad? Oh yeah, this ball's been drilled twice, so yeah, I shouldn't plug and re-drill this. Why not? You might like it better the 3rd time. You might have reshaped the core just enough. You might be more oil in it. Oh, now you get a different layout in it. Maybe you bring a ball in that you don't really like, and maybe we experiment with a different layout or a different pin location in that ball before you come in and test a brand new ball. I mean, we're willing to do that, and we're willing to work with you on experimentation. I've had balls to where I've had 3 different thumb holes and finger holes in them. And you just throw them all down the lane. Oh yeah, but doesn't it roll over the hole? Yeah, but who cares? If we're dealing with pitch issues, when I was coming back after I was out experimenting with things, it doesn't matter. I'm worried about, does this allow me to get out of it without any pain? And once I settled on something, then that's what I ended up putting in all my other stuff. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, got another one. Does pin placement on one ball mean the same on all balls as far as reaction?
It's not a science, guys. It's an art. Does 2,000 grit on one ball mean the same on 2,000 grit on another ball? Does a asymmetric pearl mean the same as a symmetric urethane ball? I mean, it's not an absolute exact science.
Here's the problem I see.
But maybe I can answer it this way, and then Josh can answer. I feel like I dominate these videos, and I've apologized to Josh. I don't want it to be all about me.
No, it's good. They love you.
I'll say this, is that pin placements for me from 3 to 4 inches are not pleasing to my eye when I'm watching them go down the lane. It's not that I'm watching the pin. It's just that the way that the ball rolls, it just doesn't look right to me. But I've been experimenting with 2-inch, 2.5-inch pins to stabilize that weight block, decrease the flare. I can use a different part of the lane, a different distance zone, friction zone wise. Most balls that I drill right out of the box, I usually drill with 4 3/4 to 5.5 pin placement. And then I can adjust the surface preparation. Man, I don't like this ball. So I don't just roll it underneath the shelf over there. I don't like this ball. Well, so then I throw it more and get some oil in it, play around with it a little bit. Well, let me throw this ball related to my favorite ball. I have an idol that I have. Gosh, it's probably got 150 games on it. I love it. The one Phase 2 that you saw last week in the video. Gosh, there's easily a couple hundred games on that ball. And I love it. I use it all the time. So maybe what you do is you take that favorite ball and you throw it and you throw it and you throw it and you get lined up and then throw the experimentation ball the same way you just threw your favorite ball, and you start realizing the subtle differences in the shape that ball creates. The usability of that ball might be subtly different. Rick Benoit has a great video on the Bowl U website about arsenal building, about starting out with your favorite ball and then building an arsenal around your favorite ball. Wow, it's a great video. So those of you that haven't joined the Bowl U website, go join it. Go play around in there and learn a little bit more about what we're teaching. So does pin placement in one ball, the same location, matter in another ball? Yeah, I would say that it does. For me, I like the balls that are drilled, like I say, 4 3/4 to 5.5 inches. Wow, some of these stronger balls. I have an Alpha Crux that I loved. It was drilled at 6 inches. That was a stronger ball at the time that it came out. Does that mean I used it everywhere? Not necessarily. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and when you said it's more about being an artist and not a scientist, I think the reason why people are so caught up in the science of it all is because the industry kind of crams it down your throat a little bit. Every ball reaction video you see is, what's this differential, what's this, everything that goes into that ball, they kind of cram down your throat. They want to give you every little detail about it. Can that be good? Yes, but if you don't know what that information really means, you're kind of just going to confuse yourself out there on the links. And, a lot of you guys are just bowling leagues, turning here and there, some no taps here and there, right? We're not professional bowlers like Brad. We dabble a little bit in tournaments and we bowl league. I just think the industry crams the science down your guys' throats a little bit, and it takes away from you being able to do something physically because you think that if we put more science behind that layout that you're going to automatically become a better bowler. And I don't necessarily agree with that at all. It's kind of my take on it. Greg ran away. I'm just trying to babble on. So ask me some more questions so I can keep talking here while Greg ran away.
I think too, one thing to add that may have confused a few people about the way Brad worded something that I was thinking about. When he's talking about pin distance, he's talking about in your layout, your pin to PAP distance, not necessarily like the pin on the box when you see that a ball has a 1-inch pin or a 5-inch pin.
Yeah, Brad's talking about 5 inches from 5-inch pins. He's not talking about what the box says. Let me go get a box. He's not talking about. I should have grabbed the store.
Yeah. What the heck? It was the closest one. For crying out loud.
See how that says 3 to 4 inches? He's not talking about that. That's just the distance from the pin to the CG, the center of gravity, okay? Brad's talking about the distance from the pin to the axis point on your layout.
Is that what you were asking? If this matters?
I think they were asking exactly what you answered, but just the way you had said something at one point, I wanted to make sure that we clarify that we were talking about the pin to PAP distance in your layout, not necessarily the pin distance on the ball.
Okay, well, I don't even know if this is true, but I'm going to say it. So preface that. I know when we're on the PBA Tour truck, I know when there's balls that are 3.5 to 4 inches from the pin to CG and the asymmetric balls, and then there's some 4 to 4.5, and then there's some that are 2 to 3.5. Well, I do know this. Depending on what we're trying to achieve shape-wise, relative from one ball to the next, I know top weight matters, relative from one ball to the next. So let's say I had an astrophysics that we just drilled, and I got through the first 5 games, and I switched to the astrophysics, and I went 250, 260. But then the last game I faltered because I lost reaction. So we drilled another ball up against that ball. We might use a subtly different starting pin placement.
Okay, so let's stop you there. But key word is, I'm out on tour.
That's what I'm getting at.
Every little detail matters to him, because he's going up against Belmos and Taggarts and the best that's ever thrown a bowling ball, okay? Them little minor, minute details you probably don't even see. So you gotta also realize where he's coming from and where we're coming from. They're two totally different things, the lead bowler and the guy that goes out every once in a while bowls a tournament, and what he does for a living. So, like I said, sometimes science is crammed down your guys' throats a little bit too much, and you guys are thinking that, oh well, if this box says it's a 6.5-inch pin, I'm gonna kill it. It's just he's looking for any little type of advantage he can get out there. When we're bowling that league, we just want to shoot 250 and go home, right?
So your league environments, so this is what you see from the foul line. That's how it looks. You threw the shot, and that's how it looks. Okay? In a league environment, you have a lot of oil in the middle of the lane and not much on the outsides. Okay? That's called a defined pattern. It's defined. If you're playing right here, second arrow, or third arrow, if you miss to the left, there's definitively more oil inside than there is if you miss to the right. There's more friction. That's defined. Out in our world, out on tour, well, let me say this. Those ratios from the middle of the lane to the outside of the lane are usually at least 10 to 1. There's 10 times the amount of oil in the middle of the lane than there is on the outside. Now, could it be 8 to 1? Yeah. Could it be 12 or 15 to 1? Yeah. But either way, there's definitively more friction as you go across the lane. We call that laterally defined. Out on tour, we have a pattern that is more undefined. So if I'm playing right here and I miss to the right, there is not definitively more friction there. Those are undefined patterns. Guess what happens to every undefined pattern? Based on where everybody plays, that pattern is going to start to become defined. Everybody's playing here, everybody's playing there, everybody's playing there. So that oil depletion and oil repositioning, well, guess what happens? The purple, there's the league environment there on the original purple pattern. And this is what happens out on tour with the original undefined pattern. Wait a minute, it looks pretty similar, doesn't it? That's why the scoring pace out on tour just goes up as the block goes on. Now that pattern may become defined farther to the left. It may become defined farther to the right. But I get texts from people all the time that want to say, hey Brad, I'm bowling on the chameleon pattern. What do I do? First of all, it's not the chameleon pattern, it's a chameleon pattern. You got surface, you got oil, you got the type of oil, you got the machine, you got how old or new the brush is. The applied pattern isn't anywhere near as important as the people bowling on the applied pattern. The field is more important than the pattern. So those of you that come and you bowl in our Sunday night sweeper, which we are having the Sunday night sweeper the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, and it will be on Route 66 again. So those of you that come and bowl that pattern on Route 66, you can go online and you can look at how to play Route 66, and that can help you get started, but there's nowhere online that's going to simulate exactly what's going to happen the Sunday of Thanksgiving with all of you bowlers bowling on it. You guys are going to dictate how that pattern evolves. So developing an arsenal of bowling balls, developing an understanding of where to be playing, and then using the most important ball that you have, your eyeball, to be able to watch where the field is breaking down the pattern. That's what you really need to be learning more about. Okay? Josh, anything to add on that?
Nope. I think we can start wrapping it up here. So if you guys got any more questions, say them now, forever hold your peace. Give you guys a few minutes.
What would you guys like us to talk about next week? Go ahead, go on the comment feed, go on to 10 in the Pit Pro Shop on the website or the Pit Nation group page, and just put in suggestions of stuff that we could talk about. Because while I may be trying to think of something that would be neat, that doesn't mean that Josh and I don't want to meet the needs and the questions that you have. I feel like each of us, in our own expertises, I feel like each of us are fully qualified to be able to answer most, if not all, of the questions that you might have.
Yep. And now we can watch it bowl too.
Yeah, there is many times we have used house shot patterns. Sometimes if our mechanic is here, that he can hurry up and oil a lane for us. That doesn't happen that often.
There's usually something
Like today I actually had the student bowling on 3 different lanes. Why? Well, we got lined up on one lane, and then we went to another lane that had, all 3 lanes had the sweeper pattern still left on it. So he had to learn to see, recognize, adapt, and then change something to be able to get matched up quickly on that next lane. So he learned a lot, and guess what? I didn't change anything physically. We talked about what he needed to change in the way that he was thinking and what he was seeing.